Power rankings versus the resume. We break it down in the SEC right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. Please like the video and subscribe for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. So for me, the power ranking is basically telling you who I believe is the best team through the worst team in the SEC. The resume ranking, much like our top 25 that actually makes sense, is based on the performance on the field. The results against the schedule, the opponents, and then the performance, meaning the level of dominance. So let's start bottom to top, and we got to go to Mississippi State. Proud program. One under Dan Mullen. One recently under the late departed Mike Leach. But wow, it's been a rough ride under Jeff Lebby. And of course, he's going to have a honeymoon period. But man, lost to Toledo by 24 points. Just ravaged at home by Florida in this game. Blake Shapen, their starting quarterback transfer from Baylor, out for the season. Number 16 in the SEC's Mississippi State. They also have the 16th or worst resume as well. They've got a date coming up, at Texas. And rarely, if ever, do you see this in the SEC. Mississippi State is a 36-point dog in Austin. All right, at number 15 in our power rankings would be Florida. Florida was happy to run into Mississippi State. Graham Mertz hit on 19 of 21 passes, and of course they're moving DJ Lagway, the future quarterback and the phenom. They're hoping to keep him at quarterback and keep him as a future Gator quarterback in Gainesville. And Florida's got a date against UCF, a very interesting matchup as Florida's making the rounds around the state. Didn't go well against Miami. They won the game against Samford. The Texas A&M game was a blowout as well, but they take advantage of Mississippi State scoring 45 points at number 15 in our power ratings. Billy Napier's For Now Gators at number 14, maybe the most disappointing team in the conference. Auburn, 6-6 regular season team last year. It appeared as though Hugh Freeze, based on his offensive reputation, would fix the passing game, and Auburn could be a factor in the SEC, but not playing good football. They have beaten no one of significance. They've had two decent opponents. They've looked lousy against both of them. Losing at home twice in one of the most difficult atmospheres in college football to win. Lost to Cal by a touchdown. It wasn't that close as Peyton Thorne threw 4 interceptions. He was bounced to the bench, but then they bring him back because Hank Brown could not get it done against Arkansas. Thorne brought him back into the ball game, but they still lose to the Hogs as a favorite at home by 10 points. Auburn's at number 14 in our power rankings, number 15 resume ranking. Oh, and they've got Oklahoma, an angry bunch, coming to town on the Plains on Saturday. How about this for an upset? The most impressive team in the conference based on the expectations? Vandy. Number 13 in the power rankings. Number 13 in our resume rankings as well. Beat Virginia Tech as a 2-touchdown dog in overtime. The only trip up against Georgia State, but then they bounced back and played an excellent game in Missouri against a top 10 team in the nation. How would that have been had they pulled off that upset? And of course, Missouri hung on for the victory in overtime. But Vandy now has a bye, gets ready for the rest of the SEC season. There's hope in Nashville, not for the Titans, but for Vandy, as they are number 13 in our power poll. At number 12, we've got Texas A&M. Played well on the defensive side against Notre Dame, took that game down as a tie game in the last 4 or 5 minutes, and then just got beat up on both lines of scrimmage. Nothing has really worked well in regards to looking good in any particular game. The Florida effort, we know what that means these days in Gainesville, even though they took care of business with a backup quarterback in the lineup and beat Bowling Green 26-20, barely squeaked by. We almost had another App State incident at Kyle Field. At number 12 in our rankings, Texas A&M. The resume ranking is 11 with their annual game against Arkansas coming up on Saturday. Next up in the lineup, Kentucky, schizophrenic Kentucky. Well, at least they were able to dispose of Southern Miss and Ohio University in easy fashion. They have had their struggles against the likes of the MAC teams in the past, but this year they took care of those 2 games. And of course, we all saw what they did against Georgia. Almost pulled it off. And yes, Mark Stoops, you should have went for it on 4th down. They lose that 13-12. A week after, they lose to South Carolina by 25 points as a 10-point favorite. The 11th rated power team in the SEC, number 12 in the resume department, is Kentucky. All right, I've been impressed by the next team, and more so this past Saturday. They could be so much higher if they would have just taken care of the football in Stillwater. At number 10 in our power rankings, the Hogs of Sam Pittman. They're 3-1. Okay, they had the 70-point demolition of Pine Bluff. Then they went to Oklahoma State, rang up almost 650 yards of total offense. Talon Green looked like a man, but he threw a pick in the end zone. Bad play by or did not convert a play in the end zone. That would have made it a 21-7 game. They lose against Oklahoma State, blew that game in overtime, bounced back against UAB, and then the huge win at Auburn. So Arkansas has got some life here. They're 3-1, should be 4-0, and they've got that date against Texas A&M. Very winnable game for the Hogs as our number 10 team, number 9 in the resume department. What happened to Oklahoma of the Big 12 days? All offense, questionable defense. Now it's in reverse, and it's not looking good going into the heart of the SEC schedule, and they were not competitive in this game against Tennessee. OU at number 9 in our SEC power rankings. They defeated Temple. Wow. They beat Houston barely. They needed a big 4th quarter to hold off Tulane, and then came the day of reckoning with Tennessee in town, and Tennessee didn't even crank up the offense. The Oklahoma defense is stout, but the offense has real issues, and Jackson Arnold for right now looks lost. At number 9 in our power rankings with the date on the plains against Auburn, it's Oklahoma, number 10 in the resume rankings. At number 8 in our power rankings, we move on to South Carolina, put them in the category with Arkansas as the most improved teams in the SEC. So impressive recently. The LSU game should have won, 2 pick sixes negated by penalty, otherwise they would have defeated LSU at a 17-0 lead. Yes, they lost the game. Credit LSU, but South Carolina looked the part against a really good team. Kentucky blew them out in the second half, 31-6. The Old Dominion game is long gone, and that near miss at 23-19. Coming off the Akron win at 50-7, South Carolina's got a bye week to prepare for a gauntlet in the SEC as our number 8 team, Missouri, almost lost to Vandy. How about that? And coming off the week before in which they barely squeaked by and had to come back against Boston College. So number 7 in our power rankings, Missouri, coming through what we consider to be a soft, and it is, non-conference slate. But Boston College showed up in Columbia. They're a better team than we thought. And then again, a big scare against Vandy at number 7 in our power rankings with the 6th best resume. Mizzou with a bye to get things in order, get some things cleaned up to face the rest of the SEC schedule, although it is one of the weaker schedules in the SEC. We move up to number 6 in our SEC power rankings, and LSU down 17 to South Carolina. Nice comeback on the road against a decent team. Got quite fortunate with some calls, but still pulled out the win. And then tied against UCLA, had to come back to win that game 34-17. So a less than stellar effort by LSU through 4 games, but they sit at 3-1 and have that SEC win at number 6 and number 7 in the resume rankings. LSU. Now we get to the top 5. Ole Miss has played no one yet. Everybody in the SEC has played somebody decent, except for the Rebels. Well, that's going to change here rather quick. Of course, they have just annihilated the schedule, including a game against Wake, 40-6, that caused Wake to cancel the return trip to Oxford next season. Kentucky coming to town. Ole Miss, a more than 3-touchdown favorite against the Wildcats. They've been that impressive. Jackson Dart leads the nation in passing. But the big games are coming up. Number 5 in the power rankings, Ole Miss, number 6 in the resume rankings to date. Now let's get to the top 4 that have been extremely impressive. Tennessee went to Oklahoma, didn't even play their kind of game offensively, got into a slugfest against the Sooners, and were far, far the better team. The defense looked stout. They, of course, completely annihilated an NC State team that's not nearly as good as they typically are. It's a bye week for Tennessee as the number 4 team in the SEC with the number 1 resume ranking, and superseded by Bama at number 3 in the power rankings, number 4 in the resume rankings. Of course, 3 light dates against Western Kentucky, South Florida, and a Wisconsin team that was not up to the challenge. Bama, Georgia, that's the monumental matchup, of course, coming up in Tuscaloosa this weekend. We've got our preview with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. Check it out on the Alabama channel. Number 2, Texas. Yes, this is a tough call between really the top 4, but especially with the big wins and the most impressive wins between Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee. For Texas, of course, they went to Michigan, won by 19. That proved to be more impressive when the Wolverines took out USC. And then the other games have been blowouts. At number 2 in both the resume rankings and also in the power poll, we've got Texas, and that leaves Georgia as number 1. And again, the power rankings are simply who I believe are the best teams in the SEC top to bottom. The resume rankings are just that. Who has provided the best resume? That belongs to Tennessee. Georgia's at number 2 with a 31-point win against a Clemson team that has proven more and more capable by the week. And of course, there was the struggle against Kentucky, and now it's all going to change in the SEC, and we're going to get a much clearer picture when we see Bama on the field facing Georgia. Those are our power rankings in the SEC and also our resume rankings. Let's check out the resume rankings here first. We've got Tennessee at 1. Texas 2, Georgia 3, Bama 4. At number 5 is Mizzou, Ole Miss at 6, LSU 7. Then it goes South Carolina, Arkansas, Oklahoma in the top 10, followed by Texas A&M, Kentucky, Vandy, Florida, Auburn, and Mississippi State. The power rankings look like this. Georgia's 1, Texas 2, Bama 3, Tennessee 4. They are the class of the conference right now until we see something from Ole Miss at 5, LSU 6, Mizzou 7. South Carolina, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Kudos to the Gamecocks and the Hogs for much improvement here in 2024 thus far, followed by Kentucky, Texas A&M, Vandy, Auburn, Florida, and Mississippi State. Please like and subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. There are your SEC power rankings and resume rankings. We will do our best to provide the ACC and the Big 12 as well, right here at the Voice of College Football.